All right. Hey guys, Mr. Kyle Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump right into it. So today I want to talk about some math motivations, and my other alliteration, my subtitle is provide versus punish versus empower, which I know doesn't start with a P, but it's like empower. So anyways, it was a slant alliteration, which is close enough. But that's what I want to talk about, provide or punish or empower. So another way to say it might be like reward or reprimand. But there wasn't another thing that started with R for the other one. So let's talk about those three things. There's three ways, and let me know in the chat if there's, in the comments below, if there's another way you can think of to provide math motivations. But usually the two are rewards versus punishments. So I'm kind of providing a third option as well and comparing all three. So let's go ahead and dive in. Before I get started, the 5 math mistakes everyone makes and how to avoid them. It's this awesome free guide that I have on our website, myersmathematics.com. Go check that out if you haven't already. You just sign up, tell me where to send the thing to, and it sends to your mailbox. So this video is mainly going to be about parents and teachers, because it has to do with rewarding and punishing, but it's kind of also applies to you as a student watching this. Especially if you're like a college student, you're wondering like, how do I motivate myself now that I don't have mom or dad to hover over me to make me focus. How do I make myself focus? How do I sort of incentivize myself? So this could be for you as well, especially if you're like a college student. So 2 questions. One, have you ever wondered if a grade incentive is the answer, or perhaps maybe like grounding your student is what you want to do, the punishment for a bad grade? So in this video, what I'd like to discuss is the pros and cons of each of the 3 things: providing, punishing, or empowering. So let's start with providing. Number 1, provide. So incentivizing. If you incentivize, then that can be a good thing. And I'm going to kind of talk about the first 2 together here. So incentives versus punishments or reprimands. It actually, either one could be really good. So some people say they're good, some people say they're bad. Research shows that usually incentivizing grades on a regular basis is actually not effective. Now, if you were to incentivize a grade, let's say at the end of the school year, that might be a little bit better because it wouldn't stifle the creativity. That's what you want, is the creativity. You want your student, your child, to want to know how to do the thing. In this case, we're talking specifically about math, but this could apply to any subject. If you incentivize grades too often and too soon, it becomes more about trying to just perform to get the thing, and less about actually understanding the material. So it can be detrimental, but you can do it right. Also, this is something that maybe you would need to take a personality test on. You, as the parent or teacher, and also students. Students need to do this as well. You could have your child do this, and they could take maybe the Enneagram test, or maybe they could do the Myers-Briggs test, something that's really going to break down who they are and how they respond to things. I like the Enneagram. It's very popular. I like Myers-Briggs, I think possibly more than the Enneagram, but the Enneagram is very popular right now, so it's the one that people know most about as far as personality tests go. When you take the test, it will kind of help you to understand how you respond to things, but you can also kind of think a little bit about it too. And this is tough for sometimes younger students to do, but you can help, or you can think about how your child or student thinks and how they respond to things. Some people respond more to fear, and some people respond more to possible reward. So it could go either way. So for an example, me personally, I don't get motivated by what I might lose. I don't get motivated by what I might lose. I get motivated by what I might gain. So for me, if I want to incentivize something for myself, if I want to say, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z, well, I need to think about what do I get if I do X, Y, and Z, and that will help me to be motivated, not what I would lose if I don't do X, Y, and Z. But some people are the opposite. I am not somebody who's overly concerned about safety. Sometimes actually to my detriment. I should probably be more concerned about it. But my wife is awesome, and she is very concerned about being safe and secure. And that's one of the ways that we complement each other. So if you are somebody, or if you know that your student or child is somebody who's motivated or wants to be safe and secure, if that's a desire of theirs, then they might respond to a punishment or a reprimand more than a reward or an incentive, because they don't want to lose the safety and security. So they might respond better to those sorts of things. But I think they both can work in tandem. I don't think necessarily it has to be an even amount of each, but I think both the providing and the punishing, the rewards and the reprimands, I think they can go hand in hand. And I think you can tip them one way or the other based on the kind of person that you're talking to or dealing with. Or if this is you, if you're a college student wanting to think about this, then you need to kind of think about, okay, like what makes me motivated? Do I get motivated by what I would get, or do I get motivated by what I might lose if I don't do what I need to do? Think really hard about what that is for you, and that would kind of help you to answer whether you should rely more heavily on the rewards or the punishments, the provide versus punish, the reward versus reprimand. Okay, so for examples, grades actually are incentives. Grades themselves are incentives. There's some cultures that don't use grades as much. Some colleges don't use them as much because grades are incentives. You know, if you get an A, that's supposed to say that you did really well. But who's to say if you really sort of enjoy doing what you're doing, but maybe you just forgot, some homeworks or didn't do something on time or whatever, and then your grade would be, a B or a C maybe. But then somebody else did all the things, but they really don't get it. Then there's a difference there. So grades aren't the end-all be-all. Grades are actually incentives. They're incentivizing your learning. But that's just how, especially in American culture, we operate. We just operate by that incentive, the grade incentive, grades itself. Also, money for good grades. I actually was a product of this growing up. I was rewarded, I think it was $5 for an A and $3 for a B, because it was like, half of that would be $2.50, which was just rounded up to $3, and then zero money for a C. But then I would also be punished. If I got a D, I would owe $3, and if I got an F, I would owe $5. Plus, obviously, if you get an F, you're also in trouble for other reasons. Well, this was my personal story. So I was trying to get A's and B's because I knew I would, make some money and be able to go buy a Pokemon game, Pokemon Silver or Gold or whatever. Back in the day, kind of showing my age right now. So I was provided and punished. I was rewarded and reprimanded with grades. It was an incentive, and it was also a punishment if I did bad. So I was rewarded for good and I was punished for bad. So it was a double whammy. So you see how you can kind of do them in tandem, where you get rewarded for good, you get punished for bad. Now, again, that's not the full picture, because I've left out the third, which I mentioned earlier was empower, but that's my example, again, for what you could do. For college students, what you could do is you could, treat yourself, right? To quote, what is that, Parks and Rec? Treat yourself. If you do really well, let's say you're taking your exams and you do really good on all your exams, go treat yourself. Go have that ice cream scoop or 2 or 3 when you've normally not been eating ice cream and you're rewarding yourself for doing really well. Something like that, right? And then as far as punishment examples, withholding allowance could be another one. Withholding treats or toys, or that sort of thing. Also, I know I was going to go into the military. I was in the Naval Junior ROTC. I was in ROTC in high school and in college. The NROTC in college was a midshipman. And one of the really common punishments is when you mess up, you have to drop and do X number of push-ups. That's a pretty common punishment if you mess up, if you say something wrong, do something wrong, whatever it is. So that's a punishment. You do bad, you have to do push-ups. Now, if you really like to do push-ups, that's not really a punishment to you. But, if you weren't really feeling like you were in the mood to do some push-ups, and then all of a sudden now you have to do push-ups, that's, kind of a punishment. And it's also sort of a good thing because, exercising is a good thing. So it's if you're someone who doesn't like to exercise and you punish yourself doing it by push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, whatever, then that could work for you. So now I want to talk about the last thing, and that's empowering. This one's hard, so it's not. That's why I wanted to save it for last. But it's sort of like it's harder, but it's more valuable. So there's rewards, there's punishment, providing, punishing, or empowering. So if you empower, if you say, hey, let's do this thing where we actually apply what we're learning in a fun way, then that can be a way to really motivate, because then you can reach your student or your child. Looking for the other word. I couldn't think of the word child for some reason. When you think about project-based learning, it can be really fun. Like DIYs, right? Do-it-yourselves. People look that stuff up all the time on Pinterest, if you're a mom watching this, or if you're, anybody really. Even guys are on Pinterest. I think I still have a Pinterest account. I just haven't been on there in decades. Not since Nam. But you could go on there. You could go on Pinterest and look up ideas for DIYs. And then you could kind of just make it your own and just do it yourself, build it yourself. Now, the reason why this is math is because when you need to build something, you have to measure. When you have to measure, you have to break out the measuring tape. If you need to find the center, you're going to have to look for this. You have to take half of, one of the side lengths and half of one of the other side lengths. Find the centroid. It's a geometry term. The centroid is made up of the medians, and the medians are the segments in a triangle that go from the midpoint of one side to the vertex of the other side. And if you draw all three medians, they all meet at a center point, and that center point is that point is called the centroid, which is the center of gravity. So if you wanted to balance a triangle, and you could also balance some other shape with this property as well, then that's what you would do. That's how you would balance it. Or let's say you wanted to build a device that could help you to hear better, like a DIY hearing aid. Well, you could build your own satellite dish. You could make a parabola. So for Algebra 1, you could make your own parabola out of some sort of material. Doesn't really matter too much what the material is. Some materials are better than others. This is especially useful if you have maybe a 3D printer, or you know somebody who has one, or you can use one. But if you can make something that's sort of like the shape of a dish, a satellite dish, you can actually make those based off of the equation of a parabola. And you can find the focus of the parabola. This would be Algebra 2 technically, but you could build it just using what you know from Algebra 1, because at this point in Algebra 1, at this point in the year when I'm making this video, it's November. And so that means that Algebra 1 has learned how to graph some things by now. So if you're in Algebra 1 even, you could do this, or Geometry, or Algebra 2. Really any math class that's high school level or above. You can make your own, you just graph a parabola on a piece of paper, a wide parabola that kind of spans out, and then you find its focus. So here's the parabola, the focus is going to be like right here. And then what you do is if you put a little sensor thing or something, if you put a little stick or something that sticks out to show where the focus would be, you can put something up to your ear and you could hear like what's going on. Because if you put your ear right at the focus of this little dish thing that you created, you could hear really well. Because what it does is it collects all the waves coming in, the sound waves and everything. It's really cool. There's all kinds of different things you can do. Even cooking, right? If you want to practice some fractions, what better way than cooking? What you do is you limit the amount of tools that you have for cooking. Let's say you're cooking something and you can only use teaspoons. You can only use teaspoons, so it's a challenge. You can only use teaspoons. You have to measure everything with a certain number of teaspoons, so you'd have to figure out, okay, how many teaspoons would this be? If it calls for a cup or 2 cups, how many teaspoons would that be? It'd be a certain number of teaspoons. So you have to measure it out. Or you could do it the other way around. If it's calling for smaller measurements, you could only use maybe a larger measuring, and then you'd have to kind of eyeball, say like, okay, what would be half of this? Half of a cup, 1/4 of a cup, 1/8 of a cup, how much would that be? Would that be a fluid ounce? I think it would be. A 1 fluid ounce, I believe, is 1/8 of a cup. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that one, but I believe it is. You can do all kinds of things. You can do all kinds of DIY stuff, cooking, creating. You can even apply it to sports. If you want to figure out how far something's going to travel, you could calculate its trajectory with also a parabola. Parabolas are very useful, and all kinds of things like that. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. So let's wrap it up. So provide versus punish versus empower. Provide versus punish. So provide could be really good if you're somebody that responds to what you could achieve. Punish could be really good if you're somebody who responds to what you would lose if you don't do the thing. Both are okay, and they're best in tandem together, but you're going to have limited results if you can't get to the empower. You can do all three, and I recommend having all three in there. You want to empower. That's the main goal, is to empower, to apply these things, but you also, can use punishments and providings, rewards versus reprimands. With that, I would recommend seeing how all three of those fit together for you, and they could look a little different for each person because every person's a little different. One person might like to do different things, has different interests, and needs to be empowered in different ways, but then also you can reward and reprimand on top of that for a massive trifecta of math motivation. And that's actually where I'm going to end this video off for today. So if you liked it, awesome, give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe. And then don't forget, that free guide is still there. It's on my website, myersmathematics.com. It's the 5 math mistakes everyone makes and how to avoid them. It's super awesome. And I'm actually going to be working on another free guide that's basically talking about the kinds of things that people who are good at math used to do growing up. Very interesting. I've done some of my own research on this, asked some of my friends who are good at math what they used to do as kids, and I found some really interesting commonalities there. So I'm going to be making that another free bit of information that will hopefully be really helpful. I'm kind of building up my repertoire of awesome free guides for you, as well as some awesome courses. So stay tuned for that. If you want to know more about that and sign up for any of that stuff that's coming out, like for instance my SAT math mini course, if you want to be one of the first ones to get in on that, let me know in an email, mr.kyle@myersmathematics.com. That's also where you can go to sign up for tutoring, because I do math tutoring. I am the best math tutor in Tampa, by God's grace. So sign up for that if you are interested in private math tutoring. And that's all of my shameless plugs for today. So if you made it all the way through, congratulations. Let me know that you made it all the way through in the comments if you did. And I will see you in another episode very soon.